Welcome to the DL Gaming Podcast, adding games both old and new to your backlog, one slightly inappropriate episode at a time. My name is Bobby, and as my old pal Bubsy would say, what could possibly go wrong? Joining me today is Taylor.
And I'm all meched up, baby.
And Amanda.
And I just got done getting knacked.
Can't wait to see what that's about. This week we're going to be talking about Bubsy in the Purrfect collection, Gudnak and MechWarrior Online. But first, what's new? Amanda, what's new?
Well, I got kind of two things. Actually, I'm just on the fly. I'm gonna add three. Yesterday, I played Anno 117 Pax Romana. The demo is out for the next 2 days. So if you're just now hearing this when we release on all the podcast listening services, it's probably too late. However, if you follow our Discord and you're with our Discord, I'm going to send out a little announcement reminding people in case they want to try the demo. It's super short, and I feel like it's definitely still cooking, but it's also like visually beautiful. It ran pretty well. I'm just kind of hoping that there's more story, but it is a demo and it is new. But I liked it, and so I'm kind of looking forward to when it releases in November. The other thing is Schedule 1 had a new update with like cartels and a whole bunch of new stuff, and they're adding, apparently the community voted to add mushrooms to the game. So I'll probably be playing some Schedule 1 in the future as well too, because that game is just super relaxing and great, and they keep adding stuff to it. And then the final thing is that I'm getting a Pokemon tattoo today, maybe two. There's this tattoo parlor that does this "you get what you get" kind of tattoo. Which if you're unfamiliar with that kind of tattooing, it's basically, it could be something like, I've seen it before, where you roll a d20 and there's like 18 options that are already pre-drawn and sketched, and depending on what you roll, they're numbered. That's the one that you get. For this one with Pokemon, they have one of those like gumball machines or quarter machines. So you put a coin in and then turn it, and you get a Pokeball out of it. When you open up the Pokeball, it's a sketch of one of the Pokemon. And I'm just going to name off some of the Pokemon, not all of them, but there's like Mew is in this, Cubone's in it, Charmander, they got Bulbasaur and like Psyduck and Eevee. So it's all from like the first generation of Pokemon, which I am the most familiar with. So to me, I'm like, hell yeah, let's run it. So I'll post pictures of what it looks like, which one I get. You know, fingers crossed that it's Gyarados. So we'll see. But I'm pretty excited about that. But Taylor, what about you? What's new with you?
Well, I was just on vacation for the last couple of weeks up in Washington State. Had a great time. The only gaming related thing I did up there was a fantasy football draft. Well, multiple fantasy football drafts, which I guess is technically a game.
And we played Gudnak together. More on that later, but we did play together.
I did play Gudnak with Amanda, as well as some Magic the Gathering, which was a lot of fun. But while I was up there, I did get to try out Xbox Cloud Gaming on my mobile device. And honestly, it worked really well. I only played Monster Train, which I think is essentially the perfect type of game to use cloud gaming with, because if there's a little bit of lag or latency, it doesn't really affect much. I would say the main complaint was on my small phone screen trying to read some of the stuff, but maybe that's just my eyes. The other thing was that it did require me to connect a controller in order to play. And at first I was confused. Then I thought about it a little bit, and I was like, well, I guess, they wouldn't have implemented touch controls for this game necessarily. So it kind of makes sense, but it would be nice if maybe Microsoft or the game devs or someone implemented some kind of like touch conversion, so that way you don't have to connect a controller to play a game like Monster Train. Have any you guys tried that?
No,
Have not. No. I love Monster Train, and you're right. It doesn't really require any sort of like quick latency to play. a reduced latency. So I could see why that could be a really good game, but the controller thing seems odd.
Yeah, that was a little disappointing. I did happen to have a controller with me since I was taking an Xbox up to my young cousin, but otherwise I would have been kind of screwed.
All right. You know, I feel like what's new with me is not as exciting, nearly as exciting as what you guys are talking about. You guys have been doing cool stuff or are about to do cool stuff. And the only thing that's new with me is I discovered a new app this week. So there's an app called the Borderless Gaming app. It just came out 1.0 on Steam for $6.99. And when I saw this, I thought, why? Like, don't most games already have a windowed full screen mode? I feel like that's pretty common because essentially what this app does is allow you to play games in windowed full screen. It was recently free on GitHub during its beta. When it came out 1.0, they started charging for it, and a lot of people were upset because there is a DLC for dark mode, and they feel like that is an accessibility option and should be included. And I guess 1.0 has some issues that the beta didn't. So the developer has been communicating a lot in the reviews and trying to fix people's problems. So that's good. But I'm still like, is this something I need? Like, I don't know. Because every game that I play, and maybe these are just the games that I play, but there's always an option for windowed full screen, for full screen, or windowed mode. Like, you got those three options. And if you do play windowed or windowed full screen, it goes through the desktop Windows management, and you may get reduced frame rates or something, but it is very convenient just to alt tab into something else very quickly. So a lot of times I end up playing in full screen windowed. So I don't know what you guys do. Do you typically just do full screen, or what's your preference there?
I normally go for borderless windowed mode for the alt tabbing, unless there's some reason I can't, if there's weird performance issues or something that along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've always been kind of somewhat of a multitasker who enjoys multiple screens. So to me, like, I avoid full screen, and I think I've always avoided full screen as much as possible unless it absolutely like is necessary. Like, I think Escape from Tarkov was one of those games that like I kind of had to do full screen, and sometimes some of the Call of Duties in the past have been kind of like that for me too. But most of the time, I'm either doing windowed or windowed full screen. Because sometimes I'll take the window. It depends. Like RuneScape, like I'll just play that in windowed. And even then, I might actually make the window smaller so I could have like several screens of reference up at the same time. But but never full screen unless forced. So.
Yeah, and I mean, full screen allows the video card to like draw right to the display, which is going to give you better performance. But most of the time, you don't really need that. Like Monster Train, I'd play in windowed mode just because it was so convenient. But yeah, it sounds like windowed full screen is the way to go. All right, let's talk about what we've been playing this week, and we're gonna start with Amanda. What's up with Gudnak?
Okay, so Gudnak was, like I had said, I think in the previous episode with PAX, that basically this is the second time now going to PAX where I've been like, I'm going to check out all the video games, and then I spend all my time at the board games. And part of it is because of this game, Gudnak. As soon as I got into the area, the floor where they were selling board games, instantly this guy was like right up in my face, like, hey, do you want to play a game? I was like, whoa, we're in Seattle, like back off. But anyway, he's super nice. Come to find out, he's actually like the artist for the game and the owner of the game, and he was really cool. They're from the East Coast and like from Massachusetts, if I remember correctly, and he had said that Gudnak means war in orc, and so this whole game is about war. It's kind of like they took Magic the Gathering with chess and a little bit of rock, paper, scissors and like made it more accessible, because it is a type of card building game. You have a 20 card deck and you have this stronghold that's kind of like if you wanted to imagine your king, because they actually have a physical board and you can move forward and backward and horizontally as well, but you can't move diagonally, although some of the cards, I believe in the elf and goblin faction, can move diagonally. So the whole story is that like there is this sun that is dying on this planet, and a ton of these factions are at war with each other to try and blame each other and also take resources. They have one faction that's very similar to kind of how the white or plains mechanic works in Magic the Gathering, where it's kind of like a whole bunch of warriors +1/+1 stuff. They beef each other up. It's like a whole team of basically paladins and their griff dogs, which is cool. Like they're bird dogs, which is really cute. And then there's a faction, I think, for everybody. I will be bringing this game to DLG Con, by the way, just to make Bobby play the like Cthulhu dwarves, because they look like they're from Deep Rock Galactic, but have an entire Lovecraftian theme to them, because apparently the way they are in the world is that they were the dwarf miners and like mining, and as the sun is dying, to avoid a lot of the conflict on the ground, they have been digging deeper and deeper and deeper, and as they got deep enough, they started running into demons and like Cthulhu-like creatures and eldritch horrors, and they started worshiping them and being like more synergistic with them as a part of an army that is now unleashing from below, which is super cool. And I could see Bobby's a little interested, piqued his interest there. He's like, dwarves, demons, sign me up. But this game was super fun. It's fast paced. That's something I think that is a problem in a way with Magic, is that sometimes it can take forever. Like when Taylor and I were playing Magic together, it took us what, like an hour and a half, 2 hours to get through that Commander game.
Yeah, that's pretty typical.
Yeah, and so this game kind of takes, around 20 minutes. I think it did take us a little bit longer as we were learning so many of the mechanics, because like I said, they do have 4 factions, and they came out with 2 expansions. I believe they just recently came out with an expansion, but why I wanted to talk about this on a video game podcast is because apparently they were building this game in 2019, and then they finally released the board game in print in 2020, right when the pandemic happened. So nobody was able to like get together and play. So what they did is the creators put this game in detail and very fluidly in terms of playing it on Tabletop Simulator for free. And the expansions are on there. So everybody listening can play this game right now for free. You don't have to buy it. And they update it. They keep up with it. They have a completely growing and beautiful community as well on Discord. There is like, I think over 400 people now a part of the Discord. They have these tournament nights. They have draft nights. They like play with each other all the time. And they're using Tabletop Simulator to do this with each other. And I loaded up the Tabletop Simulator. It's on the workshop. That's actually what this link is in the show notes. It's a direct link to the workshop page for Gudnak in Tabletop Simulator, and super easy. Once you load it up, they have the board right there. It's really great. They have a lot of media out there showing you how to play it, different mechanics, different cool stuff you can do, because you have these different heroes in your faction and your war that you're bringing out that have special things to them. There's like these like gloam warriors that are like these skeleton ice warriors that they're very much similar to like a black-blue deck, so to say, in Magic, where you're kind of launching these things and then pulling stuff from the graveyard and bringing it back out. And so they have a lot of really cool different mechanics. But talking to the owners, they had said, like talking to the owners at PAX, they had said that they didn't like that Magic was becoming a pay to win kind of game, and they wanted to make it fair and accessible to a lot of people, but still like fun and still intelligent in terms of the depth of strategy. So super fun. Taylor, what did you think about it? Because you and I played this a few times.
I enjoyed playing this game. It was like you said, it is pretty simple to learn, although we did run into a couple like rules questions the first time we played, like that dwarf deck you were talking about.
The nameless one. Yeah.
Yeah, and like we had cards in that deck that should have been outside the deck, but I really enjoyed it. It's like this 3x3 grid that you deploy your guys onto, and I thought it was quite interesting as well how there's additional cards that it comes with to create your deck. So one faction has all the decks are like 20 cards, but then they come with, I don't know how many, but more than 20
I think it comes with almost 60 cards for each faction, so you kind of have you have a bit of creativity in how you play. But I feel like when I was going through the cards, it's almost like it's pretty obvious that there's kind of like two directions you can go with each faction, which is solid because like I said, they're kind of keeping it close enough to the chest that it's not going to get out there and all crazy to where you're coming out from this like deck from the 90s that just sweeps house, right? So
Was that like represented in Tabletop Simulator 2? Like, could you customize your deck?
yes. Yep.
That's pretty neat.
There's so many games available on Tabletop Simulator as well. Like you can find almost anything there. I'm always amazed at what they have in that game. Like that's probably one of the best investments you can make is picking up Tabletop Simulator, especially for a game night at DLG. Like that's something everybody should have. It's worth having.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
I will say this game is 2-player. It can go up to 4 players. They'll have like 4-player teams or 4-player free-for-all. I'd imagine because of free-for-all, you could get away with 3 players, but I have not tried that, so I'm not sure. But my question to you guys is, are you guys going to be playing this with me at DLG Con?
I would love to play this. I hope we have enough time. Emilio just texted me the game that he's bringing, and it looks very complicated and very involved. It's like an aliens tabletop game, I think. And there's like pictures of just all the tokens and things, and it's just massive. And I'm like, oh my God.
Hold up, though. Really, the most important question. What color are the aliens?
Well, that's the thing. I think you can paint them your own colors. Like it.
Don't tell Christian. He'll paint them all blue.
Yeah.
I remember a couple years ago, Emilio brought that Street Fighter game with the really big models that was insanely complicated. I don't know if anyone even played it.
No, they didn't.
Yeah,
Did they try? Do you remember, Bobby?
Maybe, but yeah. And I tried, like he tried explaining that to me, like outside of DLG Con, we tried playing it too. It was just, it was a lot. Yeah. And if you go to these websites with all the tabletop games, they have a complexity rating. This Aliens one was like 3.5 out of 5, which I don't really know. I'd have to look at other games to see how that compares on the scale, but it looked pretty complicated to me.
Is there any way you can check Gudnak and see where its complexity is?
Oh, it'd be low.
I'd imagine so too. But I am going to say this PSA real quick about DLG Con. I would highly recommend when it comes to bringing board games that I want you to think, can I explain this game in 20 minutes while people are drunk or inebriated? And if the answer is yes, then that's a solid game to bring. Mm-hmm. Because if it's too complicated, you have a very short window. You have like breakfast. Otherwise, it's not happening.
Yeah. I always think of the fictional tabletop game from the show Parks and Rec. I don't know if people watch that show, but Cones of Dunshire. It was just like this completely like one of the characters in it like designed this game, and it was just like over the top complicated with like all these different things, but and they had like a bunch of running bits with it. It was great. But yeah, don't bring Cones of Dunshire like
or Twilight Imperium.
Yeah, I was gonna say Twilight Imperium is probably another good example. Oh man, speaking of like games that have been around for forever, though, can you explain, Taylor, how was MechWarrior Online Legends?
MechWarrior Online is, like you said, it's been around a long time. Released in 2013, and I really enjoy this game. It is kind of one that I'll go to every so often. It's not like a game that I quote unquote main, where I'm playing it all the time. But the matches, I guess I should explain what it is. It is an online MechWarrior game, the first of these kind of online games set in BattleTech. And it's essentially like an arena shooter. Where you have two teams, they load in to a map and then they fight each other over objectives. So there's not like a storyline to follow or anything like that. But there is at least a couple game modes. Like there's one called Faction Play where you are either inner sphere or clan. and you get with a team of people, like a small guild or something, and you create like a drop deck and fight a longer match. So I guess some players will, create their own like role playing aspect with this and like have rivalries and stuff, but there's not like any quests or anything like that in this game. And like I said, it's one that I keep coming back to, but I'll play for an evening or two and then do other stuff for quite a while, and then I'll come back to it later. I had gotten back, like I said earlier, from vacation. I had a short week this week in terms of being home, so I didn't have time to jump into a game and really get into it. So MechWarrior Online it was, and I guess the thing that I really enjoy about it that separates it from other types of like shooter games is the deep customization you get to do on your mech. There is like the weapons that you get to choose to equip to your mechs, and those are all different, and they keep adding new ones even this long into the game. There is these things called pilot skills, where as you play more, you get experience for your pilot that you can spend on different mech chassis to give you quirks. They call them quirks. And some of them are pretty powerful. Like there's a weapon called the Gauss rifle, which is like a railgun type thing. And it's really powerful, but has low ammo. And ammo takes up weight on your mech. So there's a quirk for a couple of the chassis that basically say plus 10 Gauss rifle ammo for each ton that you take, which is double. So the quirks can actually be pretty powerful. Some of them are kind of just there, though, like your torso spins slightly faster, like 0.7% faster torso pitch or something. The other aspect that I enjoy is that time to kill in this game is a lot higher than typical shooter games.
Oh, it's common for mech games.
Mm-hmm. You have to get through their armor, and then once the armor's gone, their structure's exposed, and if you shoot the structure, then parts fall off and all of that goodness. And I like that aspect where it's not just run and gun and everyone dies really quick. So one of the things, though, that when I got back into it recently was they were doing an event where like quick play matches are normally 12 versus 12. So you have 24 mechs in a match, and they balance the mechs that are like matched with each other in the algorithm based on tonnages, because there's different classes of mechs like light, medium, heavy, and assault. And they want those to be fairly balanced, because if it was 10 light mechs going up against 10 assault mechs, the light mechs will lose. So that's kind of how the algorithm works. And then when I logged on, they were doing this event for 8v8 instead of 12v12, which definitely affected some of the balance, because I think when they changed the matchmaking to 8v8, they didn't tweak the algorithm they use for matching, and so there was a bit more imbalance. And there's a number of complaints that a lot of people had, like the mechs were if a player left the match or didn't connect, then it's a much more noticeable difference to be one player down in 8v8 than it is in 12v12. But what was really interesting is that the event ended early because people online were complaining about it. Like the subreddits for the game were full of posts of people being like, 8v8 sucks, it needs to end, and I hate 8v8, it's the worst. And this is this was a temporary event that was only going on a couple of weeks, and people were just so mad that the developers came out and just ended it early. Which, like, I don't know. I think that's kind of lame. I like that the game was doing something different, even though it's this long into its life. And especially knowing the context that, like, this game has been in a slow decline for quite a while now. Like, it only caps out on the weekends with a couple thousand players concurrent on Steam, although it does have its own launcher, so who knows how many people are logging in through that. But there just can't be that many people playing it. So on the one hand, it's like, it's nice that the developers being responsive to the community, listening to feedback and making, dynamic changes to reflect that. But on the other hand, it's like, okay, well, we've got 4 weeks of this different game mode, and the game is on essentially life support. So the changes that do come are few and far between. And so when we get this different game mode, that's kind of cool because it's different. I don't know, like, what do you guys think about, like, when the community manages to influence the developers like that, like by complaining a lot?
I think that makes me sad in a way, because it's kind of like you were saying, it's like if we're not getting that much kind of pings of life or like hope for future, any attempt to kind of revitalize that just gets shot down so hard. I think that that's kind of indicative of where it's going, right? I was just having like a conversation actually very similar about this with my fiance last night when we loaded into Dune Awakening, because it seems as if with a lot of the people, they recently released like a DLC, and I guess a lot of people were expecting it to be drastically so much more than it was. So there was just like a ton of vitriol and negativity towards like all of it, of like claiming that the developers hyped it up and that it really wasn't what it was supposed to, and they were expecting something so much more, and like the developers came out and apologized. And we were noticing, I mean, this just happened last night, so I'm not actually sure if this is exact, but at least with our feeling of like anecdotal evidence of how my partner and I were playing, it seems like they've drastically pulled back a lot on the resource nodes, like anticipating less people to be playing. And it seemed a lot harder to find power cells, which is like a cornerstone mat in the game. You kind of need that for everything, to power up your base, to build things with. So fuel cells is pretty important, or the power cells or fuel cells. Like, it was a lot harder to find that. And it seemed like a lot of the resources were really scaled back. And I'm kind of wondering if they're on a similar trajectory of like kind of slowing down, which is a really big shame. I kind of really hate when there's these thriving communities and like there's a space that they could keep going, but because of either a lot of backlash or people kind of being so disengaged with it that they're actively kind of going against it, even if they're just voicing their negativity. I don't know. I feel like it's a lot easier to be negative and to shit on something than like to give it hope and like try and feed into that, right? And like kind of be a part of the solution instead of just bitching about it online.
Yeah, I think it's very easy to complain about things, and you got to be careful, I think, as a developer, how much you listen to that, because taking that into account can be helpful, but it doesn't always make a better game. A lot of people that are complaining about things about video games, they have very valid input, but at the same time, there's a lot of things that they don't understand. So their suggestions may not really make it a better game. And when you have a smaller community like that, I feel like there's more of a chance for your voice to be heard. I mean, we experience that even with our podcast. It's like we don't have a massive following. So if like 2 people say the same thing, we're like, the people have spoken.
Right.
Very true.
Yeah. So I don't know, man. That's a tough thing to navigate. And I think it's different for every developer. And the situations are different too. It's very situational.
Right. And like you said, it definitely comes down to the community as well. one of the big differences I think between this MechWarrior online community and like Dune community is I think the average MechWarrior fan is like a 45-year-old man, and the average Dune fan is not. Survival crafting fans. I don't know. Just my wild guess is that they tend to be younger, and there's no griefers in MechWarrior Online like there are in Dune. So,
but you know what Amanda was describing, I mean, that is a legitimate problem. If people were expecting one thing and they got something else, like something happened there. There was a breakdown in communication somewhere along the way. Like overhyped is like an oversimplification of the issue, I think, but they would need to figure out like what went wrong there, because I mean, it's perfectly fine to release an underwhelming DLC or whatever type of DLC that you want, but if it's not what people expected, then something went wrong.
Exactly.
I just think too, with like talking about Dune's trajectory thing, it was kind of like it was a whole phenomenon that really got so many people sucked in, and like they were just obsessed with it for like 2 or 3 weeks. And like there's like a flash in the pan, but I feel like with Dune it was like even more amplified in a way. So like part of me does wonder if it was kind of like there was an expectation of I feel like these guys, I can't remember exactly, but I could have sworn these guys took like almost they took a long time to make this game. So maybe people were expecting that same level of commitment in a shorter time, right? Or that same level of quality to produce in a shorter amount of time. But I'm not sure. I agree with you. I think there's some sort of breakdown in communication, but it is I feel like you can definitely navigate like what the community wants, what the player wants. But like you guys were saying, like a lot of times it can be difficult, but you have to take it with a grain of salt as well too, because some people are not the experts. They're not the ones that are creating the game. They're not the artists with the vision.
Yeah, I'm going to butcher this quote and I don't know who said it, but I definitely have read a game developer or director say something along the lines of like, players are really good at identifying problems, but not solutions. Like you shouldn't listen to their advice.
Yeah. And I'm sure, I don't really know much about game design, but even outside of game design, when there's a product out there, like the people creating that product are collecting data on it. A lot of times people will say one thing, but their actions or their spending habits say the complete opposite. People say they want more, like in movies, people are like, why is everything just like a sequel and a reboot and everything? Because that's what you pay money to go and see. Like nobody's paying money to go and see original movies. They just don't make that much money. So, I mean, not to like turn the victim blame, if you can call that a victim, but like they follow the money, So I don't know if that applies here. Like if these developers are collecting data on these and if that has anything to do with it. But anyway, let's talk about Bubsy. You'll hear more of that later. I played Bubsy in the Purrfect collection. I don't know if I committed to this last week, but yeah, I did it. So this is the remaster of the first couple of Bubsy games that came out in the 90s. The one that I remember very well is the first one called Bubsy Claws Encounters of the Furred Kind. The cat puns, they don't stop with these games. They just keep coming.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's every single level starts with a cat pun. So this is just like a basic platformer. Basically, back in the 90s, they were trying to make this new edgy character, anthropomorphic bobcat. News to me, I always thought he was just a cat. No, he is a bobcat. All right. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like a typical orange cat to me.
Yeah. But no, he is specifically a bobcat, and he is trying to protect the world's yarn supply from the invading aliens called the Woolies. So I played the first Super Nintendo game, and it was basically a lesser version of Sonic or Mario. And it just wasn't as good of a game as those ones. And playing it again this week, I'm kind of able to articulate why now. A lot of people complained about it being more difficult, and I think it's not necessarily the difficulty, but it's I'm going to boil it down to one specific thing. I'm going to get real specific here. The problem with this game is that you die if you just touch an enemy. And that's it. It's like, okay, life is gone. You go back to your save point or the beginning of the mission and you start over again, which is not, in my opinion, a great gameplay design. So you put this up against other games out at the time like Sonic and Mario, and they had different ways of dealing with this. Sonic would lose all his rings and you'd scramble around, collect your rings, and okay, I've got another hit. Or you could like pick up a shield and that gives you kind of like one extra hit. Mario had a way of solving this problem. So you could get a power up, or you could hop on Yoshi, and these each gave you kind of an extra hit point. So it, in a way, made the game a little easier, but also, in my opinion, a little more fair and fun to play. Bubsy didn't have this. This remaster allows you to rewind. You can go back 5 seconds anytime you die. So, I mean, that kind of fixes that issue, but then it makes the save points completely useless. It breaks that game design. So I don't know. I think that alone is like the big problem for me with Bubsy. Plus the controls are a little wonky, and that's all throughout the Bubsy games. Like the controls are just clumsy, especially when it went to Bubsy 3D. But what makes this Purrfect collection perfect, I should say, is all the extra things that they include in it. So it's got interviews with 2 of the developers. Unless you're like a huge fan, these aren't going to be that great. These are just talking head interviews, no cutaways, nothing. They're just like being prompted with one question and they answer it in like, a couple of minutes. I would really like to see more of a Bubsy documentary. So that's still on the table. If somebody wants to make the Bubsy documentary, maybe I need to make the Bubsy documentary. Maybe that's what needs to happen. I don't know.
Yeah. Do it.
First, you got to come up with a cat pun title.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, you couldn't have anything Bubsy without a cat pun in it. And the best part about this collection is one of the, I can't remember what they called it, but they have a section in the video section. Bubsy came out in Japan as well, and they had to translate everything. And before you start every level, Bubsy appears on screen with the name of the level. The level's the cat pun. And then he says something, which is typically like something snarky, or maybe it's a pun as well. They had to translate that to Japanese. So this extra in the collection goes through each one of those and explains, this is the American version. This is how they translate it into Japanese, which is very interesting because it's not a one-to-one translation. When you're translating jargon and colloquialisms and references to movies, like it doesn't always work. So they would explain like how they changed it, why they changed it. And the funniest part is they get to one of them and they're like, yeah, we don't know what Bubsy said here in Japanese. Nobody online and nobody working on this project could figure it out. We think he said this, but we don't know. And I'm just like, how does that happen? I'll find out in my Bubsy documentary. That's going to be like at least 10 minutes on that. Like we'll get to the bottom of it, do some investigative journalism. But yeah, that was probably the best part of this. The Bubsy games themselves, like actually playing them, like the first one I am kind of enjoying just because it's so nostalgic for me. But the other ones I'm just like, I can't even do this. Like it's just way too much. But yeah, I don't know. The game's $20. Unless you're a big Bubsy fan, and there are dozens of us out there, dozens, then this game's for you. But other than that, I can't really recommend it. Like this is, and what I realized too is this is not the only Bubsy game. I typed in Bubsy on Steam. There are a bunch of Bubsy games out there apparently. So I don't know.
It's interesting how some of those series end up just pumping out game after game, and you don't even realize it. Like Shantae is another one of those that has like 15 games or something that who knew?
There's a Bubsy game I think as late as 2017 on the PC.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, what? I'd never heard about that. And I love like the underdog or the undercat or the underbobcat, if you will. Like, I'm always about those games that like nobody else is playing. Everyone's playing Counter-Strike. I'm playing Day of Defeat, everybody's playing League of Legends. I'm playing Heroes of the Storm. Like I'm always playing the off-brand knockoff, so of course I would love the Bubsy stuff, but I don't know. So yeah, that's No more Bubsy after this episode. I promise. You know what I forgot to do when we started this section? We got bumpers, folks. Boop, 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 boop. All right. That means we're bumping into what do you want to play? I'm making my own sound effects this episode.
I love it. Yeah.
Do you want to keep the Bubsy going, dude? You want to stay?
I'll keep it going. Yeah. So Bubsy 4D is coming out. It's planned 2026, no release date, but it's coming out whether you like it or not. This is a 3D platformer, and I read the description on the Steam page, and it says you can unlock new moves and upgrades. So is this the first Bubsy game with a progression system? I don't know. We'll have to see. The art style is a little different. It's kind of that cell shaded. It's 3D, but it's like cell shaded. We'll see. We'll see if it's a good game. There's some actual gameplay footage out there from Atari, so you can check it out, see what it looks like. I think what we're really waiting for with Bubsy 4D are the cat puns, though. Like, has the well gone dry on the cat puns? Out of all the Bubsy games, can they keep delivering on the cat puns? That's the real question. So we'll see. I mean, we'll see.
Bubsy 4D, catch him if you can.
Ah. I was going to say, listen, Bubsy, the endless world of cat puns will, I'm sure, deliver with this.
Bubsy 4D, Mao with more D.
See, if we're coming up with all of these, think of the geniuses that have just pumped out over 9,000 lives of Bubsy. Yeah. Like, there's going to be plenty.
Well, they delivered in the Purrfect collection. So when you're scrolling through the games, you can also you can listen to all the Meowsic, or you can go to the Meowseum and watch the videos and the artwork and stuff. So like they know what they need to do. They know it's all about the cat puns. That's really what Bubsy's all about. Also, there's a cartoon. There's an animated cartoon for Bubsy, apparently. You can go on YouTube and watch like the pilot episode. Yeah. And his classic catchphrase, what could possibly go wrong? So yeah, Bubsy 4D, look for it 2026. Taylor, what do you got?
Well, I am looking forward to a game called Unbeatable. I learned about this game through our Fantasy Video Game Critic League, that's a mouthful to say. But Unbeatable is an upcoming rhythm adventure game, and the Steam description, or the little blurb under the title says, Unbeatable is a rhythm adventure game where music is illegal and you do crimes. So that's kind of fun. It is kind of an anime style animation, and it appears to be like there are sections that are like cutscenes that seem to be animated like an anime, and then there's the gameplay sections. And I'm not sure because the trailer didn't show too much. But it seems that you play as a member of a band called Beat. Your character's name is Beat. And there's the rhythm aspect, which they advertise as only needing 2 buttons to play. So that kind of makes me wonder, like, one, is it going to be an engaging gameplay mechanic? And my other kind of worry is, like, I'm not very good at rhythm games generally, so I hope it's not too hard. The soundtrack for this game seems pretty kick-ass. Like, it has a kind of rock punk soundtrack, and the characters go out and like beat up cops and stuff when they try to break up the concert. So I don't know, it looks just kind of fun. They say it's got 6 to 7 hour storyline, and then there's a separate game mode, which is just the rhythm component of the game where you beat challenges, and there's some progression. It does have a demo on Steam called Unbeatable White Label. That's been out, I think, since 2021 or 2. And the 1.0 full game releases on November 6th. So if you're interested in rhythm games, maybe add it to your wish list.
Very cool.
What about you, Amanda?
Yeah, so I this was another game that probably the biggest indie game that really stuck out to me at PAX when I was going through and actually looking at the different indie games. It's called Hank Drowning on Dry Land. So this game, so far what I'm gathering is it seems to be a mix of some different gameplay mechanics that makes me have a little bit of a hard time pinning down like what it truly is, other than it's a kind of a co-op game that you're playing with yourself, which is really fascinating because they have a rewind mechanic, and when you rewind, you get another shot at whatever level you're playing, but the like run through that you had before continues. So there is an opportunity, I'd imagine, where if you have to replay a level, there could be like 4 of you and you doing stuff, which is really kind of interesting and kind of fun because you can use one playthrough to like say distract a guard dog, so that way then you rewind and use your other self to actually get through. But the whole game is cool in the fact that it's done by 2 people, a designer, programmer, and an artist, and they were really inspired by the old Batman comics. So the whole game is like an entire comic world kind of thing. All the cutscenes are done like comic panels, and the whole artwork itself feels very Watchmen, like the Watchmen comic is what it really reminded me a lot of. And it feels like an interactive comic, which is super cool. They have a demo, and when you check them out on Steam, they have an entire like kind of behind the scenes, what inspired, what they thought of, why they made this game, and like some more background to it as their like developer playing. You know, when you pull up on Steam, it says like the developers live. They seem to just have like a video on rerun about this game that's kind of like an extended trailer that also describes kind of where they're coming from and hearing it from the developer, which is pretty cool. They have really good humor in it already. They have another Hank game that is just like a visual novel, and it's called a Hank Straitjacket, if you just wanted to see it. That was super short as well. The Hank Straitjacket is like basically just like 20 minutes, and it's just like a little story of like the guy like tied up, and you could see, but apparently like according to the developer, there was like such a outpouring of like support with it that they really are taking Hank Drowning on Dry Land and creating a whole game out of it. So it's pretty fun. There's a lot of stealth to it. There seems to be a lot of puzzles and a lot of different like platforming mechanics, but already in the trailer you can see that they're incorporating a lot of different game mechanics and styles into this game, with the constant like through line of the whole game being like it feels like you're in a comic about this guy who is a hero but doesn't really want to be a hero. He just wants to be drunk and like left alone. And so it's very perfect. It feels like that kind of gritty, like DC comic kind of feel and vibe, which it makes sense that like they were so inspired by Batman and like I think the 80s kind of like Batman comic style. But such a cool game. I'm really looking forward to it. It's also really like wholesome and really heartwarming to like listen to the Polish developer talk about like how they created this and where they're coming from with it. And I think for 2 people, this game is awesome. It is like wonderfully made. You can tell that there's only 2 people making it. However, the 2 people that are making it are almost more talented, I think, than even some of the teams that I've been seeing making stuff. So like they have a lot of talent in both of them, and you can really feel it. I was shocked that only 2 people made this game. It's really awesome. I highly recommend everybody just even check out the demo to see if they would like it, but I think it's really sick. It's a really cool game.
Awesome. All right, folks, let's skip on down to the community section. All right. Before we do, quick shout out to our executive producer, Truthbringer, bringing it every week. We appreciate it.
Woo,
Thumbs
thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And we've got 2 listener questions this week. First one, oh, wait, Amanda, you're doing listener questions. Take it away.
I'm doing listener questions. That's right. So first, it's not a question, just kind of a statement from one of our listeners, J. Beck Quest. He says, not a question per se, but to back up our favorite Canadian podcaster, Christian, I was watching that new High School Musical series, Zombies, with my daughter recently, and lo and behold, the aliens are blue. In this series, the color green is reserved just for zombies. So this is another example of Christian's flawless argument. you don't have to, you don't have to sit there and give him so much love when he's not here. You know what I mean? We all know that aliens are gray or green. No, I'm just kidding. They come in any color. So, but that is an interesting point for another alien that's blue. I'm curious if Emilio's board game is going to have blue aliens. So we'll see. But the next question is from Zed Lepins 1. Let's see what you did there. He said, if you had to hybridize 3 games from your favorite genre into one game, what would they be and why? And he said, you guys are great. Keep fostering a great community like you do. Well, thank you, Zed Lepin.
Thank you.
Our community is great because of people like you. So thank you.
Yeah, the community is great because of the community.
Yes. So mixing 3 games from our favorite genre into one game, what would they be?
It's a tough question, but I thought about this and, I'm going to take the genre co-op. That's kind of like a wide genre, but there's 2 co-op games that I absolutely love, Sea of Thieves and Deep Rock Galactic, yet they are so different. There are things about Sea of Thieves that I wish were in Deep Rock Galactic, though, and I feel like that would be a completely other game. I can't think of a third game to throw into the mix, but if I could combine those 2, like if I could get a Deep Rock Galactic game where you're just on like a ship, maybe even a spaceship, and you're constantly getting loot, gearing up, becoming stronger somehow. I'm kind of hoping that Deep Rock Galactic Rogue Core is going to be like this, because it's going to be like the roguelike version of DRG. I'm hoping it's going to kind of be the in-between between those 2, but I don't know. We'll see. When's that game coming out? I thought it'd be out by now.
Yeah, I thought so too.
I think that game's going to be huge when it comes out, by the way. Like, I think everybody's going to be playing that. Bigger than the original DRG. I'm saying it now. You heard it here first.
I'm thinking on this question. I think my favorite genre would probably be CRPGs, and I would take the magic system from the game Tyranny, where you get to kind of create your own spells with this kind of system where you've got like expressions and stuff. I would combine that with the writing style of Baldur's Gate 1 and 2. And then I would also add in the Pathfinder, Wrath of the Righteous, like the systematic depth in that game, with all the different build options and stuff, and just kind of make a hybrid of those 3. That is just my perfect CRPG game.
Hell yeah. I feel like with this question, it kind of is a nod back to what Bobby was mentioning, how like people say one thing and then their money and their time prove another. I would want to say my favorite genre is also CRPGs, but I know deep down inside it's crafting survivals. Yeah, it's crafting survivals. So to me, because as I was thinking about this, the 3 games that instantly just popped in my head was Dark and Light, Ark Survival Evolved, and Dune Awakening. If I were to combine those 3, I would love to have the story, narration, and cutscenes that you get from Dune Awakening, and the it feels very fluid, like with a lot of the fighting and the way that especially the hand combat and the knife fights. Like if I could take that and the cinematic quality from Dune Awakening, mix it with dinosaurs like in Ark Survival Evolved, and a lot of the mods and like the way that they do the servers in Ark, because the way that they do the servers is really nice. It's almost like all these chat rooms in a way is kind of what it reminds me of. I love that and wish they could take it, which they have a little bit of that in Dune Awakening. But then Dark and Light, I felt like did such a great job at spell casting and customization, and really allowing you to be free in the way that you're designing stuff to create like a really beautiful base or whatever you were going for. But I really like how they did that. They also had a really cool mechanic of essentially shooting a bow to tie and like wear out, and it's almost like fishing, like you were fishing animals actually to like capture them. And I really like that mechanic a lot too. So I'd probably say those 3 games combined for sure. So high fantasy sci-fi with dinosaurs. So,
Nice. Pathfinder has all those things.
oh,
Well, there it
well,
is.
does it have ornithopters?
No.
Shit.
All right, Taylor, what are we plugging this week?
I just wanted to let everyone know next week we have a themed episode coming up. It's going to be called Not Your Grandpa's Mount. So tune in next week and hear us talk all about mounts and maybe the mounting procedure. And I mean, I don't know. We'll see.
I don't know about that.
Like, how long should you hold X to mount?
All right. Well, my name is Bobby, and joining me today was Amanda and Taylor. Be sure to tune in next week for our episode all about mounts, everything you wanted to know about mounts in video games. What are we playing them out on this week, Amanda?
Yeah, this week we're going to be playing the outro music to the first level of Bubsy, Claws Encounters of the Furred Kind. Goodbye.
What could possibly go wrong?